Can you talk about the struggles that the managers face? What do you think about leadership and culture? Can you please talk to us about the 8 leadership types, styles? In terms of leadership, what quality do you reckon a leader needs to possess? In terms of culture, what are some important components for there to be good culture? That if you were to choose 2 values that a business should include in their list of values, what would you choose? What advice would you give them to move from a single person organization to a multi-person organization? Hi everyone, I'm Mina from Pinnacle Accounting and Advisory, BusiHealth YouTube channel, and I've got Greg Bull with me today. Greg is a leadership coach for front and middle line managers from ivleadership.com. Greg, I'll pass it over to you to tell us a little bit about yourself, please, and how you help team members and front line managers.
Great. Thank you, Mina, and hello, everyone. Yes, my focus is helping frontline and middle managers because the reason I focus on them is typically you find that a lot of people get promoted into a role, but they get very little training and coaching support. And a lot of us, and I've been the same, and I'm sure Mina and many of the people watching today have been through the same experience where you get put into a job leading people and you're kind of figuring out and learning by the seat of your pants. And I got into this because first of all, I spent many years leading organizations and I worked my way through frontline and middle management, but then I got into business improvement and management consulting, and I worked with a lot of businesses, lots of different businesses, and I started to realize that everyone has got the same issue and challenge that I had. A lot of people who are responsible for managing the people that do the work haven't got a lot of those leadership skills at hand on a day-to-day basis. And rather than do what I had to do and many of us had to do, we sort of learn as we go. You can actually learn all this stuff quite quickly. You can be taught a lot of this, you can learn a lot of this, but more importantly, when you've got someone in a corner like a coach helping you develop those skills, your ability to learn and apply goes exponential, and you can very quickly, in quite a short space of time, become really good at managing and leading people. You just need a little bit of help, and unfortunately, that group of middle managers and leaders don't really get that at all. So that's my focus, and hopefully we can cover a little bit of that today as we talk, and maybe some ideas to the people viewing this video on how they can improve either their own leadership or that of their people and their teams.
Greg, fantastic. I agree with you. I think if we look at a book such as The E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber, he talks about technicians, managers, and entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
The entrepreneur is the person who leads the organization at high level, right? They want to see that the organization is growing, so on and so forth, but they don't want to get trapped in terms of doing the technical or managing people as much as they could be. They like to delegate that out and lead the whole organization, the whole ship forward. So what ends up happening is the technician gets promoted maybe to a manager and they don't know what to do. So can you talk a little bit about that, please, and the struggles that the managers actually face from a technician to a manager?
Absolutely. So many of us get promoted to a job because we're really good at what we do. We're technically very proficient. We might be a really good salesperson. We might be a really good engineer. We might be a really good operator because technically we're really, really proficient. We're very, and to get there, and it's described in the term technician. To get there, we're a very good technician. We're very task orientated. We're very task focused. And so that is our natural inclination. That's what has brought us our success. What then happens is often because of our success, we get promoted into a role where we're suddenly managing a bunch of other technicians, often in a job doing the same sort of work we were doing before. And there becomes this sort of challenge of actually letting go, of actually letting our people do the work that we're so used to doing, and being able to step back and get our hands off. So the biggest and the first, I think nearly without a doubt, every new frontline manager, and often sometimes for months and months and months into their tenure, the thing they've found the hardest is actually stepping back from being hands-on to called working through others. And it really takes a mindset change. And so the mindset change from being a technician to a manager is to be able to understand, is to sort of lift yourself up out of the sandpit, have a bigger picture view, not as high level as maybe the entrepreneur having. He's looking into the adjacent sandpits, if you like, and saying, okay, I understand how the process works. I understand how we get things done. My job is to be an enabler for my team to be able to do things. So rather than actually doing the work myself, I've actually got to work through them. What happens is, and I was just reading a post on LinkedIn today about micromanagement, and one of the comments on there was, my co-worker got promoted into be the manager, and all of a sudden started to micromanage me, and I wasn't able to do the work. And so it's the natural inclination for a technician is to want to be in control and do things. And that's when you become a micromanager, and you need to change your task from being on the tools to your task needs to change. So the mindset shift here is, my task isn't doing the work, hammering the nails. My task is actually helping the others do the task, working through others. And that's the big mindset shift that people have. There's some ways we do that. In my program, we sort of go through, teach people how to do that, how to step back and how to delegate. And there's some really, delegating is not just telling someone else to do something and then coming back and going, oh, I haven't done it how I wanted. And then your micromanager comes back in. There's quite an art in how to give direction and set expectations. And that's what you need to learn from going from technician through the manager, how to set expectations in a way that you don't come across and become that micromanager.
It's about communication at the end of the day, and understanding how leaders go differently to technicians.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's communicating. So the first thing you know is to provide. That's one of the things I talk about in my programs, is providing clarity, clarity of expectation, clarity of purpose, and clarity of role. So clarity of purpose is, why do we exist? Why are we doing this job and role in the first place? And then clarity of role is, what is it that you do that helps achieve the purpose? And then clarity of expectation is, what is the outcome? What does the customer want? And the better you are at communicating that to your team in terms of role and expectation, and assigning that reason why, the much better you'll be at actually leading and managing people to achieve those outcomes that your organization and your customer wants.
Greg, fantastic. Building on that, what do you think about leadership and culture building for the frontline and middle line managers? One thing I'm particularly interested in is, should they be looking at the individual needs of the people that they manage, the people that they supervise? Because I think a lot of the time people conduct performance reviews and they say, oh, have you met this target? They don't look at the person and say, how is this target important for the person on a personal level? And then how is that aligned with the organization?
Yeah, 100%, Mina. I think that's the trap that people fall into is that being focused purely on the output or the outcome, and forgetting about the needs and expectations of the person doing the role and doing the job. And so culture, you talk about culture. Culture is really important here. Culture for me is you are what you do. And so culture is how you, so if your culture is hammering on the people all about outputs, and not worrying about the individual and how they're setting them up for success to achieve those outcomes, your culture will become very bad. It'll be very, you can almost say toxic in that regard. The key, really important thing to leadership is understanding the needs of your people to be able to achieve those outcomes. And so there's a number of things in that. Do they have the capability? Have they received the right training? And do they have the skills and resources they need? Do they have access to the right systems at the right time, in the right way to be able to do that job? Have they been given really good instruction, indication? And are they getting, if things aren't working well enough, are you providing them support to get there? Don't just look at the out. If someone's failing to achieve an outcome, the first question a leader should ask is, what could I have done differently to make sure that they could have achieved that? And often it'll be something to do with their capability, their access to resources, and sometimes then potentially even back to then it could be the motivation of the employee, because they might have something going on in their personal life. They might not like your micromanagement. That might be bringing them down. And so yes, absolutely. If the employee is looked after and you take on that sort of servant leader role, I think John Maxwell talks a lot about servant leaders. If you take on that servant leader role where you see yourself as being an empowering and enabling force for your people, then if that's your mindset, then straight away you should be thinking, do they have the skills? Do they have the equipment? Do they have the time? Are the systems working correctly? Have I done everything in my power to help them succeed? So absolutely. And if you've got a culture that is supportive that way, you will get really great outcomes because your people will be enriched and empowered. If it's all about the outcome and the outputs, chances are your productivity will be poor. your staff engagement will be poor. You might have high turnover rates. You might have high customer complaints. You might have poor quality because people aren't engaged in what they're doing and why they're doing it. So yeah, absolutely. Culture is really key, but particularly how you define that culture.
I think it was John C. Maxwell who actually said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah, 100%.
So middle managers and frontline managers, even entrepreneurs, anyone who's in the leadership position needs to actually care about the people they are responsible for guiding. And that's what they're doing. They're guiding these people to achieve an overall team objective. So getting to know people and genuinely caring about them at a personal level is very, very important. And also seeing what makes them tick and aligning that with what needs are required by the organization. That becomes very, very powerful, I believe. Another book I love is Good to Great by Jim Collins. Jim Collins mentions something. He says, great vision without great people is irrelevant. Again, that's very much related to middle and frontline managers. But they also mention what they call level 5 executive leader. And they say that a level 5 executive leader is someone who has professional will and immense humility. So I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I think if you have those qualities at every level, then that's fantastic. Particularly if you are the entrepreneur or you're the head of a department or head of an organization, then professional will is about what's our vision, what's our purpose, what's our strategy, what's the path we're going to take to achieve those things, and that's all fantastic stuff. It enables you to inspire people as to where you're going and what you're doing. But people can be inspired. As you said, a great vision is no good without great people. So you might have a great inspirational vision, a great plan, a great roadmap mapped out. But if people aren't engaged in that, then you're not going to achieve it. So that's where the humility comes in. That goes back to, okay, I need to now support my people in a way that we spoke about, that this enabling role that leaders must play. That's where the humility comes in. I need to care about my people so they will care and buy into the vision where we're going. The other really important thing here is people. Everyone's got our own. We've got our ambitions for the organisation. We've got our own personal ambitions. If you're able to align someone's personal ambition and drive to the ambition and drive of the organisation, then that's a win-win, and that's where that humility comes in. Is Mina, if you worked for me, Mina, and I say my business was, say, let's call it leadership coaching, and I knew you wanted to be a great leader. Then my conversation with you will be aligning your ambitions to my ambitions, so we're achieving those together. And that's where that humility piece comes in. It's really thinking about, it's not just about me and my organization. It's about how can my organization help our customers, but also how can I help my employees be the best people that they want to be and can be. Absolutely, totally agree.
Jack Welch did something phenomenal when he first came into General Electric. He really took that company from one level to a very, very high level, right? We all know General Electric and how successful they were under Jack Welch. What Jack Welch did was, instead of asking the managers on how to improve the company, the organization, he actually asked the people on the floor, and he asked them to give feedback about the managers, which was a profoundly different approach to what is used in most organizations these days, which is, it's always the higher managers look at the staff or the technicians and say, this is what you need to do. This is the performance review. And they use the performance review as a way to almost herd people to different areas and to do different jobs, rather than having an all-encompassing, what do we need to do together as a team, no matter what level you are at, to ensure the objective, the mission of the organization is actually met. What are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree with that as well. And I mentioned before that I worked as a management consultant for a number of years. And part of working for a management consultant is you get given a project. The business wants to improve some way. The first thing we do is we go and talk to as many people as we can. But we don't talk to the managers at the top. We talk to the people doing the work at the front line, the technicians, if you like, and the managers, because they know why things are working. They know why things aren't working. The people who are at the coalface that are engaged with executing, they know what works and what doesn't. They also know if they're not getting the right support from above, and to enable them to do things. They know that as well. So Jack was 100% right. And it comes back to the accountability piece. And I think, I don't know if you're familiar with the work of, it's always the way, man. It's just when you want to say something,
So the tip of your tongue.
The management accountability hierarchy, and it's by Elliot Jacques. And Elliot Jacques, he says, as a manager, you are accountable for the personal effectiveness of your people. Now, what that means is that if my team aren't performing because capability or lack of resources or lack of time, lack of motivation, it's not their fault. It's my fault as the leader, because I'm not doing something to ensure that they are fully capable of what they're doing. And so what Jack was proposing there was he was putting accountability back onto the manager. So you are accountable for your people's effectiveness, and I'll ask them how good a job you're doing at that. And that's a great approach.
It would be very interesting if performance reviews were actually done the other way, wouldn't it? Where the frontline people who are doing the job actually performance appraised their managers and how effectively they are leading them, and they are actually empowering them to do the tasks that they need to do.
Absolutely. There's a lot of organizations that do those types of 360-degree reviews. In fact, one of the tools that I use in my work is we have an assessment form that goes to exactly those people, exactly to the people at the coalface, and on a bunch of criteria. And it asks a simple question: what of a list of 10 or 20 things? What are the 10 most important things you need as an employee, and how effective is your organization, your boss at providing that? And they provide that feedback to us, and then we use that as a coaching tool to identify where some of the managers that we work with can actually improve some of the things they do. So yes, it's a highly effective mechanism. And if you've got if you can get access to an assessment tool to let people provide that feedback, you can I said, a lot of these leadership skills are very learnable, very coachable. And when often people don't know, often a lot of those managers, I think with Jack, well, they probably didn't know that they weren't effective because no one had told them until their people turned around and said, actually, you're not very good at this. And they were probably shocked and said, well, I need some help. Can someone help me? No one wants to be known as a bad boss. In fact, we all want people to think we're the best boss our people ever had. And so to get that feedback is gold, because it enables you to be the boss that you'd like to be.
Can you please talk to us about the 8 leadership types, styles?
Well, there are 8. In my program, we talk about 8 leadership styles, and whether there's 8 or more or less, it doesn't really matter on the count. But what it is for me is that there are 8 styles, and each one has its own pros and cons. Depending on the situation, it should be the style that you adopt and use. I really see leadership style as the tonal aspect of your communication. So, for instance, you have transformational leaders. That's one of the styles. A transformational leader is great. So they're often a lot of your entrepreneurs or your transformational leaders. They have the vision, the purpose, the goal, and they're trying to get someone, trying to inspire people. So they're often not that focused on detail, though. So they often need a good transformational leader needs to have some managers working for them that are really good at the detail, that are able to translate that. And so their role is to lead us and take us through a growth and change period. Then you might have an autocratic leader. Now, people don't really like autocratic leaders that much, or that leadership style. But at times of crisis and emergency, when things have to be done, someone who's able to come and be very direct, we need to do this for this reason, that style is probably quite a powerful style to use. And it doesn't necessarily need someone being transformation. Just says, we need to fix this. The boat's sinking, go and fix the hull type approach. And being autocratic works then. Then there are other styles. You've got your servant leader, which I think we've spoken about already. To me, the servant leader is the introverted transformational leader. The servant leader doesn't, so often a servant leader works really well in an organization which is kind of really established, that is trying to maintain and grow at a steady pace. And the role of the servant leader is to be that enabling force to support and help and develop their people. And that's a very powerful, and so the servant leader, particularly in established businesses, is seen as a very good leadership style to have. But then you have other styles. You might be, if you're in a very creative environment, creatives really work better with a laissez-faire style of leadership. So creatives like to be given their head, given room to do what they need to do, and every now and again need to be brought to just to make sure we're all heading in the right direction. So that more hands-off style works in creative environments. That said, though, they still need to be set direction, because creative people can go off in all sorts of directions and maybe not produce the outcome for the client. And then we have bureaucratic leadership. We're all familiar with bureaucratic leadership. bureaucratic leadership is if you're in a very highly regulated environment where there's lots of rules and regulations and processes. So maybe in some of your accounting fields, being more bureaucratic because there are things you have to do. They're not negotiable. So it needs someone who leads and is comfortable with that as well. So that's important. Then we have democratic style where you need to, might be once again, could be a creative team or idea generation where you need to give everyone a voice. So that style needs to be adopted at that time. One of the most maligned leadership styles is the charismatic leader. Often the charismatic leader it's often your visionary leader, but not much else. And so if you are naturally that way, then you need to find people that can add the substance and detail to your way of leading. And then the final one, and probably, is the transactional leadership style, which is pretty much like micromanagement in many senses. Now, there are many times when that's important, but once again, you might, on a very short-term project, you might be paying people on a commission basis where turnover and throughput and transaction count is very important. It's a short-term engagement. Maybe that style works. So it's really about the leadership styles are situational. So if you're to be a really good leader, learn the 8 styles and know when and how to use them to best effect. Don't just have one way of doing things because you'll get found out.
And through your program, people can identify what leadership style they resonate more with. Is that
absolutely?
Right?
So through the program, we talk about leadership styles and have almost the exact same conversation. We go through the pros and cons and how we're going to use them, and then we get people to what sounds more like you. And then the thing is, if I say I'm naturally a democratic leader, then maybe I need to find another style at different times to use when if I can't get consensus or decision making, if that's not working, then I need to find another style. And so we talk to people how to do that.
And can you also talk me through the 4 aspects of your program too, please?
Well, yes, I sort of alluded to this a little bit before. So as a leader, there are 4 things that you really need to focus on. We spoke about clarity before. So in order to inspire and engage people need to have clarity of where they're going, why they're doing it, and the role they're playing, and what the outcome looks like. So you need to be very good at giving people clarity. How often do we hear people say, I told my team what to do, but they did something completely different? And that's because it's lack of clarity. So your clarity is number 1. Communication is number 2. So you might have this great vision and picture of how you want things done, but if you just bang, just put in a list, hand it to people, that's not, so you need to communicate in a way that works for the people. So communication to inspire and engage is important. So where we use our emotional intelligence to really understand people. We talk about culture. Culture is all about consistency, but this is how we do things around here. So culture is learning how to create those really positive cultures to get the most out of your team. And then the final one then is, as leaders, we need to make decisions. And so that's your critical thinking skills. So what we do is we teach people on our program. And we don't just teach them, we actually coach people how to do this. Coaching is a big part of what we do. How to provide clarity, how to communicate to inspire and engage, how to create a great culture through consistency, and some critical thinking techniques so you can make much better decisions for your people.
In terms of leadership, what quality do you reckon a leader needs to possess?
I think the key one is leadership is about people. It's about influencing people. And so there's a couple of elements to this. There's the emotional intelligence piece. So empathy is about understanding people. And empathy, a lot of people misunderstand empathy. They think it's about being sympathetic when things are bad. Empathy is actually just understanding what's important to people. So what are your ambitions? What are your drives? What are your motivations? What's your life like? If I can understand that, and then I have situational awareness, then I can communicate in a way that resonates for you. And so I think the key quality is being able to communicate for your audience, not for yourself, but for your audience. So it resonates and works for them. Because when you can do that, your ability to influence them goes from here up to here somewhere. And I think John Maxwell says leadership is influence. It is the key. It is the main thing. That's influence. Leadership is influence.
It actually builds on that. I think it says, if you want to influence, you must be willing to be influenced.
Absolutely. And they often say to be a good leader, you need to be a good follower as well. So you need to understand. So that there are 2, because in any organization, there's only one person right at the top. So everyone is a leader and a follower nearly all the way through.
Yeah. In terms of culture, and I know we spoke about culture a few times, what are some important components for there to be good culture?
I think for there to be a good culture, culture is all about the values of your organization. And so it's really, if your organization has good values, so the values that, our purpose, our reason why we're doing things, and what the values of the organization are. So having values is one thing, but then living and breathing and walking the talk, so to speak, of those values is the next place thing. So you can have culture. Culture is just the way you do things. So if you've got bad values and you live and breathe those bad values, then you're essentially you're walking the talk with your culture. But not many people want to work in that environment. So it's having a really good set of values that resonate with your people and your customers. But most importantly, then is walk the talk and living those values in everything you do. And so when we think about those leadership styles and behaviors we spoke about, you need to apply that. Okay, how do my values tell me how to do this? And that's the key. That's the key thing. It's about having those great values and then applying them in everything that you do. Easier said than done in some instances.
Yeah, and I think it's very important because that's the spirit for the organization. And so when people are asked, why did you do this particular thing? They need to refer to the spirit of why we're doing what we do rather than the letter of the law. Sometimes when people are not empowered, they look at the letter of the law rather than the overall objective and the spirit of why and where we want to get to.
I'll give you a great example of that, please, Mina. One of my clients is a community housing provider. So they provide housing for people that are homeless or were homeless, and now they're providing subsidized housing. The challenge is in that environment, every now and again, these people actually find it hard to pay their rent. And so people have to chase up and get their rent. Now, because these are vulnerable people, this isn't so much a rent collection exercise. Because the values of the organization are keeping people in their homes, the mindset that they apply when they are asking helping them pay their rent or helping them, giving them solutions is, I'm helping save someone's home, as opposed to I'm trying to collect their rent. I'm helping save someone's home. And so that's really living the values of the organization. Yes. And for me, that's a really good example of what you just talked about.
I can say that if you were to choose 2 values that a business should include in their list of values, what would you choose?
The 2 values I would choose is we have obviously our purpose is for our customers. So there needs to be a customer-centric value in there. So we do this for these customers for this reason. So you need to have a customer-centric value. The other value then is an employee-centric value. We support our employees so you need this yin and yang of employees and customers. So your 2 core values must be based around employees and around customers, because without the customers, you wouldn't exist. And without the employees, we wouldn't be able to serve our customers. And so that your 2 values, without writing it, typing it out, have you got a customer-centric value or set of values, and have you got some employee-centric? And then how do they align together? Because if you're too customer-centric and don't think enough about your employees, then your employees suffer, and vice versa. So my advice there is make sure your values are customer and employee-centric, but they're aligned to support each other.
Could you give us maybe some values, something like accountability, respect, things like that? What do you reckon, maybe just 2 for the audience that will really get them thinking about at least having those 2 and then building on that?
Yeah, I think accountability is a really, I said earlier today about accountability. So accountability is an important value. So we're accountable for our people, we're accountable for our customers. I think it is really important. And I think the other one that it would be around respect. Once again, so we have respect for our people. So you mentioned before about understanding the people and we have respect for our people but then also similarly we have respect for our customers as well. So I'd say accountability and respect, because from that then other values like trust and those things can then come out of those as well.
Fantastic. I'm gonna throw you a curveball here.
I love a curveball.
It's not as dramatic as I make it seem out to be. You've got this. The question I have for you is, if someone is a technician, they've just started their own business, they're working for someone for the majority of their life, what advice would you give them to move from a single person organization to a multi-person organization, and to really grow that and have that vision, have that leadership skills? Remembering that Michael E. Gerber mentioned that you start off as a technician and somehow you've got to find your way through the manager and the entrepreneur, or at least jump between those 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's quite a straightforward question, really. Is the technician is, and for a technician to have the belief or the self-belief that they've got the technical capability and the product or service or whatever it is that's going to, that they can start their own business is a really great starting point. So the first thing they need to do is they need to, that reason why, that becomes their vision. And so from a technician's aspect, their first thing is to say, I need to turn my reason why into my, so put my entrepreneur's hat on. That's why are my skills so good, and why do they help my organization? How are they going to help? And turn that into a vision statement, their North Star. That becomes their guiding light. And so if they think about, or if they think about going from being a technician to an entrepreneur as a process, the first thing they need to know is where are they going? So they need to know their reason why needs to become their vision, their entrepreneur's vision. The next piece then is say, okay, so I'm a great technician and I do these things really, really well, and they work well for these reasons. This is now apply that management lens. Okay, so if I was to step up a level from that, how would I explain and ensure that if I went, if you're on holidays for a week and someone's going to do your job, how would you set them up for success? And so being a technician, they probably know the process and the detail really, really well. So provide really great clarity in terms of the process of what's important in the process and for their customers. And then if they can describe and explain that to one person with the reason why being, okay, this is my product and service is great. This is how we deliver that for our customers. My role is to make you a success, is to train and teach you how to do that. And then just multiply that across so now all of a sudden they can sit in, they've got the management piece worked out. They've got they can now delegate to their people, and they know where they're going with their North Star. So I think so I think using the E-Myth as a guide, they can actually use their natural instinct to be task focused and actually turn that into a process of how they can get from being technician to entrepreneur. Does that make sense and help?
Yeah, that sounds very, very good. I love the way you explained that. So in terms of setting policy systems and procedures, who should be involved in those very important tools and instruments?
So there's two elements to this. There's the is this for the same person or just in general?
I think both in general and for the same person, because I think someone who's just recently started out, they really want to grow an organization. They might really struggle with that because it's not an area that they were ever asked to really develop.
Yeah, so there's the two. It's a similar sort of process. The people doing the work know how. So ideally, you know what your process so you know what the inputs and outputs should be for your process. You know what the core steps are. I would then ask the people who I want to do the role of actually create and develop a system and process. I would provide that oversight to ensure that the important things weren't missed, and that particularly things like handoffs and hand-ins of where things come and go, and provide the oversight. But you want to step up a level and because there's two things to this. If the people doing the work have created the process, then their buy-in will be far greater than if they're just handed something and said, you go and do this. So, but at the same time, you need to ensure that what they've built actually meets expectations. So you just need to provide that oversight without becoming the micromanager. And so if it's not quite right, say, these bits aren't quite right, go away and bring it back to me when it's don't fix it for them, get them to once again produce the output. So I'd say mine is as much as you can, get the people doing the work to create the processes, but you need to provide that quality assurance to ensure that there's nothing missing in the gaps, because they might not have the big picture. So you need to make sure, particularly where there are multiple people involved, that the interfaces connect correctly.
Amazing. Greg, thank you very much. Is there maybe a few points you'd like to mention as a summary of everything that you spoke to us about? And let us please know how people can reach out to you. That'll be absolutely great.
Yeah, definitely. I think the key thing for me is I really focus on what middle managers and frontline managers need to do. I think to be a leader in those roles, the challenges in those roles are a little different to the challenges if you're an entrepreneur. They're much more, they're closer to the process and closer to customers. And so we spoke about culture and process, and we spoke about clarity and communication. And to be a really good leader at the front line, you need to be able to communicate. You need to understand what you're doing for your customers, but most importantly, you need to understand your people and develop that situational awareness. So what I do as part of our group is we actually do provide a lot of, not just those leadership styles, but we also do behavioral profiling, which is a really powerful tool not to understand yourself, but also understanding your team and the people that you're managing. So that's a key step. If anyone's interested in finding a little bit more about how they can fast track their leadership development, if you've been thrown into a role, or you go, actually, I've just promoted all these people, I haven't given them any training at all, I'd like them to, in 5 or 6 weeks, actually become really good people leaders, then go to my website, ivleadership.com, or you can contact me on LinkedIn. Greg or Gregory Bull on LinkedIn are the best places to contact me. And there's phone numbers and emails and contact me forms, all the usual stuff on there. So please reach out. I'd love to talk to you about how we can help fast track your people or your own personal leadership development.
Greg, thank you very, very much. Again, this was a conversation between Greg Bull from ivleadership.com and Mina Baselyous from YouTube channel BusiHealth and Pinnacle Accounting and Advisory.